I pulled into my driveway after a grueling day at the courthouse, eager to finally unwind in the comfort of my own home. The idea of sinking into my recliner with a glass of bourbon in one hand and a dog-eared mystery novel in the other was the only thing that had kept me sane through the endless parade of tedious property dispute cases I presided over. But as I reached for the remote to open my garage door, something immediately struck me as wrong. The lights inside were on. I frowned. My car should have been the only one in the driveway, yet a sleek silver sedan was parked exactly where I usually left my truck. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe a neighbor had parked in the wrong spot by mistake. Maybe a delivery driver had gotten the wrong house. But as I walked up to the front door and pulled out my key, the cylinder refused to turn. My key didn't fit. For a few seconds, I stood there like an idiot, jiggling it in the lock, my pulse thudding in my ears. Then it hit me like a freight train. This wasn't some minor mix-up. This was something much bigger. Something was terribly wrong. I knocked, loud and hard. A few moments later, the door swung open. A middle-aged man stood there, wearing a bathrobe, holding a steaming mug of coffee, as if he had every right to be there. His salt and pepper hair was tousled like he'd just woken up. He blinked at me with mild confusion, followed by a slow, patronizing smile. "Can I help you?" he asked in a tone that suggested I was the one trespassing on his property. I stared at him. "I think you're in the wrong house." The man chuckled softly and shook his head. "Nope. Bought last week. Got a great deal, too. Hua okutiyan." For a second, my vision went red. I clenched my hands so tightly my knuckles cracked. A heat boiled in my chest that I hadn't felt in years. But I forced myself to stay calm, to speak evenly. "This is my house," I said. "My name is Judge Nathaniel Brooks. I never put it up for sale." The man gave me a pitying look that made my skin crawl. "Sorry," he said with a shrug, "but that's not what the Oak Ridge HOA said. You had unpaid fees. They foreclosed and sold it." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "This has to be a mistake," I said. "A ridiculous, absurd mistake." I pulled out my phone and dialed the number for the Oak Ridge HOA, pacing the porch as the so-called new owner sipped his coffee like he had all the time in the world. "Good afternoon," a woman's bright, artificial voice answered on the second ring. "Oak Ridge HOA, how can I assist you?" "This is Judge Nathaniel Brooks," I said sharply. "I've just arrived home to find my house, my legally owned, fully paid-for house, has been sold out from under me. I need an immediate explanation." There was a pause on the line, followed by a carefully measured tone. "Oh, Judge Brooks. Yes, I see here that your home was foreclosed due to unpaid HOA fees." "I've never missed a payment," I snapped through clenched teeth. "Not once." "Well, our records indicate otherwise. Perhaps you overlooked a fine." Her tone made my blood pressure spike. It wasn't just dismissive. It was smug. "Pull up my account," I said. "Tell me exactly what I supposedly owe." There was a rustle of papers, keyboard clicks, and then a faux thoughtful hum. "Ah, yes. It seems you had an outstanding balance of $10. For a moment, I thought I hadn't heard her correctly. $10. I repeated, my voice dangerously low. "Yes, sir. There was an administrative fee added last year that remained unpaid. Per HOA bylaws, any unpaid balance can result in foreclosure after 6 months." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "You foreclosed on my house over $10. Rules are rules, sir." I hung up before I said something that would cost me my job. My jaw was clenched so tightly I could feel the ache radiating into my temples. The man in the bathrobe gave me a helpless shrug. "Look, I don't know what to tell you. It's legal. Got the deed and everything. Maybe you can talk to the HOA. But as far as I know, this house is mine now." I took a step closer, and he instinctively took one back. "I'm Judge Nathaniel Brooks," I said evenly. "I specialize in HOA litigation." His face paled. "You mess with the wrong guy," I added. Before he could respond, flashing red and blue lights bathed the street in harsh light. 2 police cruisers pulled up. My neighbor, Mrs. Gladys Pennington, stood behind her window, her mouth forming a perfect O. Three officers stepped out. One, a tall, stocky man whose badge read Officer Marcus Reynolds, gave me a wary look. "We got a call about a disturbance," Reynolds said. I exhaled sharply, rubbing my temples. "There's no disturbance. I'm trying to get back into my own home." Reynolds exchanged a glance with the bathrobe man, who suddenly looked a lot more confident with police backup. "Sir," Reynolds said carefully, "we have documentation stating this property was legally sold by the Oak Ridge HOA. I understand this is frustrating, but you'll need to take it up with them." "You expect me to just leave?" I asked, incredulous. "Yes, sir," he said firmly. "Otherwise, we'll have to escort you off the premises." "You're telling me my house was stolen and you're siding with the people who stole it?" "Sir, if you refuse to leave, we'll have to consider it trespassing." I had never wanted to punch someone so badly in my life, but a judge getting arrested wouldn't help my case. I took a deep breath, turned to the bathrobe man, who was now smirking like he'd just won the lottery. "This isn't over," I said. "Not by a long shot." As I walked away, I could feel the weight of my neighbor's stares burning into my back. My hands trembled, not from fear, but pure rage. The Oak Ridge HOA thought they had pulled a fast one. They thought they could get away with this. They had no idea who they were dealing with. By the time I reached my car, a plan was already forming. I was going to bring them down. Not just for me, for every homeowner they'd ever scammed. The rest of the story continues with Nathaniel Brooks digging deep into the corrupt practices of Oak Ridge HOA, enlisting the help of investigative journalist Mark Holloway, and uncovering a mountain of evidence of fraudulent foreclosures, bribery, and kickbacks. He works alongside Linda Pearson, a former treasurer of the HOA, who provide the USB drive loaded with damning evidence, including rigged auctions and illegal asset transfers. Together, they blow the case wide open in both the media and the courts. Nathaniel files lawsuits, freezes HOA accounts, and leads the charge in dismantling the corrupt Oak Ridge HOA. Greg Simmons, the smug HOA president, is arrested and faces criminal charges. The community reclaims their homes and forms a fair, democratic council to ensure no one ever suffers under such tyranny again. Nathaniel buys Greg's foreclosed mansion at auction, poetic justice for the man who once stole his home. And when Greg, broke and desperate, comes begging for help, Nathaniel turns him away with the same cold indifference Greg once showed to his victims. In the end, Nathaniel finds peace in his reclaimed home, surrounded by a now thriving neighborhood free from corruption.